There is a point that you got to change that hustle. It has to shift. And a lot of people get stuck here. So a lot of people you'll talk to have their business at $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and they're running ragged and they want to sell it and get out from underneath it because they can't handle it anymore. And it's stressful. And that they're hard charging. They're like working themselves to the bone because hustling is what got them there. And they think that's what's going to get them sort of to the next level. And it's not. It's actually going to hold them back. And so the hustle trap is that it's like, I've done the hard work and now I need to bring in structure and I need to change the way that I look at my business. And instead of being on the field, you need to get up into the grandstand, looking down on your business and painting a picture from abroad. This is the reason why I walk every day, because it's my job as a CEO of my companies to think. I absorb information, I learn, and then I digest information, I think about it, and then I think about ways to apply it to my business.
Today, we have a guy who is a true quintessential serial entrepreneur. It would take me probably a week to tell you everything that this guy is involved in, what he's been successful at. And he's really, really humble because he said he wants to come on and talk about all his mistakes. But I guarantee you, he has many, many more successes. So our guest today is a serial entrepreneur who's been involved in construction. He's been an early founder of crypto. He's involved in fundraising because he really wants to make the world a better place. And for people that listen to me, they know what I care about most is that he's a happily married man and the father of 2 children. So welcome today, Ryan Crownholm. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Dr. Patty, and good to see you.
Great to have you here. So we were talking the other day, and you were saying how you realized as a business leader that there are so many aspects of business leadership that we apply to our companies, to our work, to our careers. And you said the magic words for me, and this can apply in my personal life as well. So with all the different experience you have, so share with us a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I spent, I've always been a sort of a lifelong learner, very curious. And so I read a lot of books. I go to a lot of conferences. I listen to podcasts. I do a lot of thinking. I make sure I walk at least a couple miles a day alone with my thoughts to process things. And I realized when I started writing a book, as I was putting all these things together, 20 plus years of entrepreneurial experience, and all of my learnings along the way, working with other people, that I had taken that information and really compartmentalized it. And I had these other issues personally with health and otherwise that I wasn't addressing. And so I started really taking some of these things like the metrics tracking and the sort of like putting brackets around myself and like the feedback loops. And I started
hang on 1 second.
Health.
Tell the listeners but just 1 second. I'm really, really apologetic. I forgot to mention really what's important too is that Ryan is a former U.S. veteran. So thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So tell the listeners what you mean by putting brackets around yourself. What does that mean?
So basically, I don't like to live a life that's like super confined, but having some sort of, guardrails are important, meaning,
okay.
And I do this for my business and for my employees where I want to give them a lot of freedom and flexibility, but to work within a framework. And so I have, I've dealt with like ADHD personally, and I've dealt with all kinds of other things where if I just let myself go wild, I go on tangents and I can't stay focused. And meaning I can't keep my health in check. I can't create good habits. And so I sort of set some parameters, and meaning like some metrics that I keep track of. And, I do like blood tests, and I do, like constant glucose monitor, and I do like lots of different things to see where I have a meal delivery service because I don't trust myself with food. And so as I started applying all of this stuff that I done in my business to my health, I lost a lot of weight. I lost about 50 pounds. I started to feel better. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I can't picture you heavier.
Yeah, about 50 pounds. Well, I lost some muscle too, because I went from, throwing around some really big heavy weights with the guys to being like, this isn't serving me anymore. I just hurt myself all the time, to doing more like lighter weight type stuff, workouts, body weight, pull up, push up. So anyhow, it was interesting making this transition and really starting to apply as I was doing this book writing process, thinking, well, this is like really good knowledge. And so I, along that journey of sort of quantifying myself and sort of biohacking, I did a scan, which was a pre-nuvo scan, where they do a full body MRI and they can detect 500 different types of cancers and diseases and conditions. They found.
Well, hang on a second. Detect meaning that it's lurking, waiting to be expressed, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, meaning I felt 100% healthy. It was out of curiosity to have another data point to look at to see where my body is at. And as it turned out, they found an 8.5 centimeter cancerous tumor on my kidney. It was a stage 3 cancer, and I had no idea it was there. And it turns out that this particular type of cancer, when it does present itself, it's too late. It has already metastasized. It starts to your lower back, it gets into your spine, it gets into your lungs.
How long ago was that?
This was 6 months ago. Yes, wow. About 6 months ago.
And dodged a bullet.
Dodged a bullet. So I went in and had a surgery, had my kidney removed and some of the surroundings around the kidney. And so I've nursed myself back to health. I feel fine now, but the doctor was really clear with me that, had I waited another year or we started to have symptoms, it would have been a very different outcome. And so I feel very, very fortunate. So this was all a part of this sort of, taking this knowledge of and just having, a full understanding of my health and my well-being and really taking it seriously is why I found this cancer. And so really the process of writing a book probably saved my life.
Wow. So let's go back before you were writing the book. Take us through the journey of when you were born entrepreneur, in your bio, you talk about, being in Bosnia and huddled around going through schooling, right? So it sounds like, I hear the ADD, the ding, 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 ricochet rabbit going on here. But how did you take all of that energy and bring yourself to where you are today? Because there's no playbook on how to be a successful entrepreneur. And usually for most entrepreneurs, the success is really born in maybe not success, failure.
Yeah. So, I came from a long line of, I don't even know if I want to say entrepreneurs, but a long line of men who can't work for other people. Meaning my father owned his business. My grandfather owned a construction company. My great grandfather worked for himself. And so it was just sort of this, for me, if you asked me when I was 8 years old, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I don't know, I want to start a business. What kind? I don't know. I never really saw myself working for someone else and then I went in the military and I went, oh yeah, that definitely reaffirms that I'm not capable of working for another person. And so when I got out, yeah, funny story is when,
well, you did have an honorable discharge though, right?
Oh yeah. I was honorable discharge.
So you muddled through.
As a matter of fact, a conversation I had with my command sergeant major when I got out, he said, Crownholm, you could make a good career in the military. You should stay in. There's nothing for you on the outside. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, when you get out, look me up. I'll give you a job. So I have to do some push-ups. Have you heard from him? No, I have to do some push-ups. No.
But you should look him up.
Yeah, but so anyhow, I get out of the military and everything is good. And my parents are like, oh, you can stay with us. We're under construction now. And so there's no sheetrock on the walls. There's wood floors, just bare wood floors. And so pretty rough, but it was got a roof over my head. I've been combat deployed. This is fine. Then 2 weeks later, I go to the gym and I come home and the house had burned down. Something happened with the construction, the contractor standing outside of my parents' dog, and the house is gone. I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be rough. So we stayed in a hotel for a while, and then eventually the insurance ran out in the hotel, and so I ended up in my car and living on friends' couches. And I woke up one morning in the back of my '84 Honda Accord that was just beat to shit, and I was like, I'm homeless. Here's this. I'm thinking back to this command sergeant major is there's nothing for you out there, and I was just like, no. That he's not going to be right. And so I kind of at that moment made a commitment, I'm going to hack this. I'm going to figure this out. And so I just,
you're reminding me of, Ryan, if you've ever listened to Barbara Corcoran talk, she talks about, the boyfriend that gave her $1,000 and she started her business. And then when they broke up, he said to her, you'll never amount to anything. And she's like, oh yeah, watch me.
I know, right?
Those kept thinking about him.
I know it's like it's pride or stubbornness or something in some of us, where it's like it's all the wrong reasons to be successful, but it works. It's like so. Anyhow,
bribery works for kids too. You're not supposed to do it, but boy, it works. And I don't know a parent that doesn't bribe.
That's right. So anyhow, I made that commitment, and so at the time I was working as a daytime food server. I was hardly making any money, but I was
working.
I was working in a restaurant as basically a waiter.
Daytime server. Okay. I just wanted people to hear you. Okay.
Right. And so from there, I was going to a junior college. I worked hard. I got straight A's at the junior college. I worked my way I started doing bouncing because I was like a pretty big guy. I was a bouncer, and then I was a bartender, and then eventually was managing.
All right. Hang on one second. You must have at least one interesting story that people won't believe about being a bouncer. Pray tell.
Well, one funny thing was the guy, Pat, who managed the restaurant, we used to have a line around the corner. And I went to Pat.
Now, where was this, Ryan?
This was in Walnut Creek. It was a place called the Cantina at the time. Okay. And so
is that still there?
No, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
But Walnut Creek is.
Yeah, Walnut Creek is still there. Yeah. So anyhow, people would always try to pay me money to go to the front of the line. And so I finally went to Pat, to the manager at the time, and I said, "Hey, Pat, listen, the people who are willing to give me $20 or $100 to skip the line to get in are going to spend more money on drinks. Can I take some bribes?" So
what did he say?
He said, "Yeah, do it." So I started making great money. I think I'd make like $800 or $1,000 every night that I bounced there, getting people to the front of the line. And those people would come in and they would spend a lot more money. He made more money. The restaurant made, we were all happy. But that was this is the way that my mind thinks. It's all about, return on investment. It's like, listen here, we could ignore that, or we could not let them in, and then, they'll stand in line and everybody's frustrated, or we could, so people would go and they would tell, that bouncer's taking bribes to let people to the front of the line, and Pat be like, "Oh, shame on him. I'll have a conversation with him." But it was like an understanding. But no, there was a lot of other stuff. I'm not much of a drinker. And so I didn't really enjoy working in that environment, but it was good money for the time. And so, but I did have several instances where I'd have to get physical or whatever. And it's not something that I've ever enjoyed. It was very, very much.
Did you ever feel threatened that your life was in danger, or is that?
No, Walnut Creek is pretty suburban. It's not a place that, not really. And
it's still pretty suburban, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. It's a little bit. It's got a little bit of a city vibe, but all in all, it's a pretty safe, mellow place.
Right.
So yeah, with my background at that point, I had been, I'd been deployed to Bosnia. I'd been sort of shipped around in the military, doing a lot of different things. We were a pretty physical bunch of guys there, and so I didn't. I was very insecure in a lot of parts of my life, but physicality was not one of them.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. So you're bouncing, you're serving at the restaurant. Go ahead.
Yeah. So doing the work, and then eventually I applied to some colleges. I got a full academic scholarship to St. Mary's because my grades were good. I had worked my way up through the food chain in the restaurant. So I was doing, started managing, and so I was making a little bit of money. Plus, the Army was paying me my Montgomery GI Bill, and so things were starting to look pretty good. And then while I was at St. Mary's, I started a junk removal company called the Hauling Pros. And we basically would go and clean up construction sites and, haul people's garbage to the dumps. And so it's funny, the way that company grew was one of the trucks had broken down. I had to rent a truck, and I thought, oh man, this is terrible. I need a backup truck. And so I would go I bought a new truck, and then I bought a backup truck just so that wouldn't happen again. But then I'd have a friend that's like, "Hey, I'm out of work. Can I work for you?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I got an extra truck." And I put him on that truck. I go, I need another backup truck now because now 2 trucks are working. So I buy a 3rd truck. And then another friend would lose a job. But hey, can I work for you? Yeah, okay, cool. So this was the process of growth. It was kind of unintentional. But by the time I graduated, I had probably 8 or 10 trucks doing about $1 million a year in hauling, doing pretty well.
Now, does that parallel to college, 1-800-GOT-JUNK or any of those other kind of companies?
Yeah. So at the time, 1-800-GOT-JUNK was a pretty small company up in Canada. So I had
Cameron Harrell, my peep.
Yeah, that's right. I've talked to Cam more about this. But it was a very fragmented industry. Mostly guys would pick up trucks with their phone number spray painted on the side of it. And so I came in and I put my guys in polo shirts, and I bought these beautiful dump trucks, had them all custom made to look identical. And it was hauling pros. 866 haulers was the phone number. So I'd say, give us a hauler at 1-866 haulers on the side of the truck. And,
cute,
so,
very cute.
Yeah. So we did really well.
Hang on one second, Ryan. How old are you at this point? You're in college, you said, right?
Yeah, I would have been 25 when I started that business.
Who gave you the capital to buy these trucks? Because these trucks are not cheap.
No. I took a non-forgivable student loan for $14,000 to buy my first dump truck. So
then what about the second one?
Well, I had cash flow, so I bought it off of cash flow.
Okay.
Yeah, and then eventually I was able to get some SBA loans as well. The government guaranteed loans. Yeah,
small
and
business,
so that's how I grew. But most of them I was buying cash. Because the company was doing really well. It was, I had changed. There was no real rhyme or reason to the pricing models. It was just people would show up and quote jobs. And so I said, well, I can't keep going to every job to quote one. Long story short, I basically created a pricing model for the trucks where I would tell people over the phone, this is how much it's going to cost. When I get there, we'll verify the cost, we'll load the truck. So we didn't have to go there twice, and we didn't have to haggle on price. It is what it is. And that made those profits skyrocket. And now that's sort of the model that everybody uses now for the hauling businesses. So then, over the years from there, I started, contractors would say, can you tear down this, this shed or this building or this fence? And the job started getting bigger and bigger. And eventually I had to get a demolition license. So a C21 license, contractor's license. And then started buying equipment. I'd buy a Bobcat, buy a little excavator, just to do a job. And then the equipment kept getting bigger, and the trucks getting pretty soon. I had 10-wheelers and dump trucks and roll-off dumpsters, and so we grew quite a bit. And then eventually, I got a general engineering license, and so it was. There was a lot of businesses that started to sprout off of that main business, and then in 2007. Shit hit the fan. I was going to a job site. I had a 1-ton crew cab dually pulling a 10,000-pound trailer, brought it to a job site. My guy was downloading a Bobcat off of it. The jacks on the back snapped. We were parked in a slope going downhill. The truck broke free, came down. I looked up and I saw it coming, couldn't get out of its way, fell directly in front of the truck. Truck ran me over, drug me under the street, underneath it until it hit another car, jackknifed. And in the road, I pulled myself out with my one arm that was still working. And I looked down at my legs, and it was just a tangled mesh of just blood and bones. My femur was sticking out of my jeans, and my tibia snapped in half, and my shoulder was shattered. I had broken some ribs. Those ribs had gone into my lungs, so I could hardly breathe. And I was bleeding out on the street. I was dying. And I was lucky enough to have an ambulance show up within, probably 7 minutes and get me to a trauma center.
I would think you'd even need it sooner if your ribs are going into your lungs. Like that to me is.
It had punctured my lungs, but I could still breathe. So I wasn't deprived of oxygen completely. And then my jeans, because they weren't like the stretchy jeans, they were acting almost like a tourniquet because the swelling wasn't allowing all my blood to go out. So I survived. So they got me to a trauma center, and I went in for 12 hours of trauma surgery. And that was on July 3rd of 2007. And then July 4th, I woke up Independence Day, and I was confined to a hospital bed. And here I was, this very physical person that had grown this business completely on my back. Like, I am a manual laborer, and that's what I do. And I couldn't do that anymore. And so I had to sort of very much reevaluate the way in which I ran my businesses, which was
your business, ran your life.
Yeah, basically everything. And so, I went.
Hang on one second, Ryan. Hang on 1 second. So July 3rd, your world literally comes tumbling down. Yep. July 4th, you wake up on Independence Day, right? The irony's not lost on you that you have no independence. But I can't imagine right away you thought, I have to change how I run my business. Like, what was that? Take us through that transformation, unless it happened immediately, which is, oh my gosh, write the book for that.
So it was a couple of things. So it was, first was, the housing market was starting to correct at that time.
Yep. It's a nice way of saying it. Correct. It crashed, right?
tied to the housing market very much. So I was already very concerned. And then, with this on top of it, me not being able to be in the field, I thought for sure I was going to lose my business. But then I think back about the last 6 years, about sitting in the back of my car, having that conversation with myself about like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I'm not backing up. Like, I've worked too hard and I've given up too much.
But hang on, but you're already being so methodical and strategic. On July 4th,
yeah,
were you this like where was your head?
Yeah, so this is
not your mind. I should say your heart. Yeah.
My place of power is when I'm backed in a corner. And so when I feel like I have no options, or when I feel like I'm backed in a corner, it's when I turn into a wild animal. Like I've got to fix this. And so that's where my mind goes to. And so that's where I was. It was like, I got to get on the phone. Back then we didn't have like Wi-Fi. There was no
but hang on, Ryan. You weren't so July 4th. Are you saying July 5th you're on the phone with your business? What about being able to walk? And like, what about the physical aspects of your rehab?
Yeah, that was going to happen when it happened. So that wasn't up to me.
What do you mean?
My body was going to heal on its own pace. My business was not.
Yeah, but weren't there things that you had to do to help your body heal?
No, I was still with the morphine drip. I had titanium rods in both legs. So you have a morphine drip going and you're rebuilding your business. Yeah. Well, the beginnings of it, because the next morning things were still going to keep happening, meaning their jobs were going to happen. And so I had an operations manager at the time. So I was in contact with him, in contact with the guys, and like just making sure that everybody knew what they had to do, making contingency plans for filling in the void of what I was supposed to do, like kind of the immediate stuff that had to happen. And then, after that, was probably after I got out of the hospital in a couple of weeks. And then, I was in a hospital bed at home after that for a while, and then in a wheelchair. And then eventually I was able to sort of say, okay, what is the next step? Like, where are we going from here? And that's when I really had to start thinking more strategy. So initially it was like, keep the business alive. Then it was, okay, strategy. What are we going to do? And this is where things got really interesting.
So it's keep the business alive and none or minimal focus on your body and your health. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you realize how unusual that is? Like, do you realize that? Like, I keep trying to go back to it. Like, that's amazing.
Just like I said, my body was going to do what it was going to do. And this is the same thing when I just had cancer 6 months ago. It was my wife is having a very hard time. My son's having a hard time. And I'm like, that's fine. I just got to have a surgery and then I got to do this, but I got to make sure blah, 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 blah. I'm very,
so you are the king of I'll say it this way. You are the king of compartmentalizing.
I am the king of dealing with the things that are within my power. And those things that are not within my power, I just ignore. And so
but let me challenge you with one second on that. Let's do this. Yep. Let's do this. I totally get what you're saying. However, and I know you know this, we have so much power in terms of our mindset and our energy to heal ourselves or to not heal ourselves. Right? So doing nothing. Like, yes, you can have a diagnosis, but there's so much that we can do that influences that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
So remember that I am a physical person. I have incredible faith in my body. I can outwork anyone at any time. And it's been like since I was in the military doing manual labor, my body has always served me. So when I'm in this situation, my body's going to figure this out. I'm going to heal.
So you have full faith that
I got faith in that.
Take care.
I'm not worried about that.
That's incredible. Not
worried about
that.
I get
it. Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyhow, what got interesting was after that was like, well, now the housing market was coming down.
Now after that is you're out of the hospital and you're running the business.
That's right, running the business, but I can't run it the way I ran it before. And so I'm saying, well, what am I going to do? The housing market is coming down. We can't continue on the way that we've been doing. And so I basically had a series of things that I was just experimenting with as I'm sitting at home on a computer desk for the first time, because that's not something I usually did. And I had an AdWords guy, and I said, here's like 50 different things that we're capable of doing, from like tearing down houses, underground construction, pool removal, grading, paving, like basically everything that we could do with our equipment. He created a campaign, and we started getting a lot of hits for the swimming pool removal, like a lot. And so this was 2007. People were basing their pools were needing something done, but it was $10,000 or $20,000 to remove it, or $50,000 or $100,000 to remodel it. So the cheaper option was the removal. So I said, okay, well, this is a niche. It looks like there's plenty of traction. Let's dominate it. Yeah. And so I went after this pool removal niche. And with that first year, I think we took out 18. The next year, we took out 40 of them. The next year, we took out 100 pools, then 200. And then by the time I sold the business, we were taking out about 300 pools a year. So, and this was good margin work. So that was one thing that I did, and that saved the business 100%. And then I opened, I was looking across.
Can I ask
expenses.
you, what's the good margin? What can you define what's the good margin?
Like a 70% gross margin.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. In construction. Awesome. Pretty unheard of in construction. Yeah. And there's ways that I came about that to keep my costs down. That's a very long, like a longer story. It actually leads into some of my businesses that I have now, which is sort of monopolizing the dirt in the Bay Area, sort of owning that part of the business to make it really hard for competitors to compete against me. After that, I looked at all my expenses. With the hauling stuff, we were doing a lot of, I started calling around to realtors and banks to get all the foreclosure business, because I said, hey guys, like if you want to keep working, like let's go out and just do whatever we got to do. And the guys were like, let's do it. Don't care. And so they're like, we'll strap water heaters. We're putting up smoke detectors. We're weed whacking. We're clearing out houses to get boarding up windows. So I've got a whole crew that's doing that now. This property preservation division. We started getting a lot of TVs, computer monitors, appliances and things. And we're taking them to landfill and looking over my dump receipts. I'm like, man, they're charging me $25, $35 each. Like, that's crazy. And so I thought, well, why can't I just become the recycler myself and make money off of these? So I got a state license in the state of California for redemption of TVs. And I became a recycler. So instead of going there and paying to get rid of it, we started bringing it back to my warehouse and then making money off it.
And then what did you do with it after it comes to you? Where does it go?
So we would TVs and computer monitors. They were the CRTs were basically, at the time, the state was paying me 50 cents a pound to palletize them and ship them off to recyclers who would dismantle them. Computers, we would strip them down to the elements, meaning we would have the wiring, and we would have the hard drives, and they all be in different containers. And then we would have a company come by and they would buy those from us. So we basically just break it down to the core, and then other recyclers would take it and disassemble it. Appliances, we had relationships with metal companies. So we had a big 40-yard dumpster with metal company. They would pay me by the ton. And then we had even like mattresses were another big problem. I worked a deal with, they had a program at St. Vincent de Paul where they would disassemble them. And it was a program they had for employing the people that had a hard time getting employment. So we had an arrangement with them. And so this center was working so well for my company that I said, well, maybe we should just open to the public. So we did. So we opened to the public, and we were a very popular recycling center. We started making a lot of money, and I thought, well, this is great. We should do another one. So I opened a second recycling center. And then we started doing like all of these fundraising events where we'd go to like churches and schools, and they would have their huge lists of people, and they would bring all their stuff in. We would set a truck up there. We would palletize everything, and we'd split the profit with them. Free money. It was great. And so they make money, we make money. And so we were doing these events all across the Bay Area. So this ended up being another huge area for cash flow to come in. So now I've got the property preservation company with the foreclosures. We're one of the largest in the Bay Area doing foreclosures. We were doing hundreds of these houses. We got the recycling center. We got the pool removal. So between those three, now my company is rocking and rolling, and I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm sitting in my office just putting things together. And so this was sort of this was the way this transformed the way that I look at business, the way that I run business. Because before that, I thought that I was the most important thing in my business. Like if I didn't show up and swing sledgehammers with the guys, then my business would fall apart. But I was actually very much a cog in the wheel. And so this is very much about what my book is about, kind of what that transformation is and what I do now. So now when I run my businesses, they're hands off. I'm not an important part of my business. So I was going to say that the listeners don't know about your book yet. So you just threw that out there. So talk about the hustle trap. Yeah. So the hustle trap is basically, it is a sort of a deeper dive into what we're talking about this transition for me from being, running what was at the time a successful business. But it was, the whole idea is like going from 0 to 1, from nothing to one, as a bootstrapped entrepreneur, you got to hustle. You got to work your ass off. And there's no way around it, because if it was easy, there'd be too much competition. You never make any money.
Right.
There is a point that you got to change that hustle. Like, it has to shift. And a lot of people get stuck here. So a lot of people you'll talk to have their business at $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And they're running ragged and they want to sell it and get out from underneath it because they can't handle it anymore. And it's stressful. And they're hard charging. They're like working themselves to the bone because hustling is what got them there. And they think that's what's going to get them sort of to the next level. And it's not. It's actually going to hold them back. And so the hustle trap, that's what I call the hustle trap, is that it's like, I've done the hard work and now I need to bring in structure and I need to change the way that I look at my business. And instead of being on the field, you need to get up into the grandstand, looking down on your business and painting a picture from abroad. This is the reason why I walk every day, because it's my job as a CEO of my companies to think. I absorb information, I learn, and then I digest information, I think about it, and then I think about ways to apply it to my business. And if I didn't take that time, a couple hours every day, to just simply be alone with my thoughts, I would never grow. My business would never grow. That's where my growth comes from, the time that I'm walking alone. None of it comes from being in my business. And so this is something I really try to help people with, in their businesses. Is like, how do we, initially, it's like,
book, isn't there a book that, was it The Road Less Stupid, Keith Cunningham, where he talks about think time?
I'm not familiar. This is something that I've just done for myself.
Yeah. No, it's the same concept as, like, some people consider it the best business book ever written, which just goes to show you how brilliant you are. Seriously.
Well, it's because learning new information is worthless without actually digesting it. It's like, it's one thing to ingest information. It's another thing to digest it. And so just reading a book or going to a conference or taking notes or whatever, and then just setting it aside and going to the next book is like, it defeats the purpose. It's like, so when you take in information needs to be applied to your life. You need to think about how you're going to apply it to your business. You think how it applies to your life. Like those are that's the important part of information. And a lot of people try to skip that part. So I've just made it a point not to.
Well, I think it's interesting. When you say skip it, I think, and I've seen this with my work, people have a cognitive understanding of things, but they lose the emotional connection. And without the emotion attached to knowledge, it's sort of kind of really useful, right? It's like, why the talking heads are on TV are blah, 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 like it's just noise, because it's just saying stuff without realizing the emotional connection. And without the emotional connection, you don't really understand the ramifications for what you're thinking or saying or suggesting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So you go from, so inception to 1 to 2 to 3 years is hustle, right? And then what happened for you was the accident became your blessing in disguise. Is that?
Yep. 100%. 100%.
And that's because it gave you the think time? Although you didn't sound like you were thinking much. Sound like you were moving already.
Well, I was moving, but I was, I was creating space for myself that I hadn't otherwise created before. I thought that hustle was about being busy, meaning like in the beginning when I was starting my business, I needed to be on a tractor. I needed to be swinging sledgehammer. I needed to be out with my crews.
And you did need, and that's accurate, you're saying.
That's accurate. It was an important part of the initial company growth, leading from the front. That's what I learned in the military. You lead from the front. But there was a point at which I was actually just being busy. It wasn't hustle anymore. It was just about being busy. I got to be out with my guys. Like that's what I've always done. That's how I grew the company. I got to be there, but it didn't matter. It was holding them back. And so, it was amazing to see.
So why do you think so many entrepreneurs and business owners get caught up in that trap?
Because they think they're doing the right thing. They think it's what's right for their business, because that's what got them to where they were. Therefore, that's what's going to get them to the next level. And it's not. It's a completely different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, this was, it was an opportunity for me to see with my guys the level of which they could step up. I called them up on the phone and I say, hey, listen, I can't be out there. Like, I need you guys to step up. I need your help. If we're going to do this, we got to and they stepped up. Like, and they might have
also been thinking, they might have also thank God he's been in the way, but we didn't want to tell him.
That's true. I mean, yeah. So, and,
No, I mean that kindly, right?
yeah,
Like it's just like anything else in life. If you keep doing things for people, then either, what's the expression? You either buy somebody a fish or you teach them how to fish.
yeah.
Right.
But it was also just that I thought that they needed me. And it wasn't, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I thought that if I didn't show up to the job sites and work side by side with them, that they were going to be lost. And it was this sort of like, I didn't have faith that I maybe had hired the right people, or I didn't know. Like, I just, so it was amazing to see, like, when everybody just snaps into action and suddenly just things just start getting done and I'm not there. And I'm like, I was the cog, I was the problem. And I didn't think that. And so because of it, I take great care in hiring people now. When I hire people, I jump through hoops to make sure that I'm bringing the right person on the team. Because
what does the right person look like? What does the right person look like for you?
It depends on the position, but I'll usually run through several interviews, several tests. I'm willing to pay a lot of money for referrals through my employees. And so I know that they're going to be, they're going to be the ones that are representing me to my customers. And my reputation means a lot to me. And so I don't mess around. It's the same way as like if I was to hire a nanny for my kids, I wouldn't just go on Craigslist and pick the first person. Like, I'm going to do some diligence. Like, it's something I'm going to take great care in, and I take great care in who I bring onto my team now, because I know that they're the ones that I'm going to need to rely on. Because what's
the most important thing that you look for when it comes to character, not skill set, but character?
Generally, I actually don't care that much about skill set. They can learn skills. Work ethic is the one that I need. Meaning, if you know how to work hard and you have a generally like a good attitude, that's all I really need. I can work with that. We can grow together. It's kind of like in construction. It was like, if I went out and looked to hire a heavy equipment operator, the only ones you're able to hire are the ones that are currently out of work. And good people are never out of work. And so if I hired people at a low, it just doesn't happen. It's very rare. Or once they do get out of work, they're going to the giant construction companies or going to work for the garbage company that pays $45 an hour with full benefits or whatever. It's more competitive. And so when I groom people from the beginning who have incredible work ethic, and then I put them through training for heavy equipment, and I would put them through truck driving school, and they would grow within, and they would never leave me. I have my last company, I had it 15 years. I had half of my staff had been with me for 15 years. It's the same with my company now. I've got people that have been working with me for 7 or 8 years ever since the beginning. So, yeah. So that's
what's a question you ask? Because I'm working with a company now, helping them with the hiring, because they're hiring all the wrong people, but I already know why. But what's a question that you ask to see what their work ethic is? Of course, it's not what's your work ethic. So what's a veiled question where you're asking one thing, but you're really looking for something else when it comes to work ethic?
Boy, it really depends on the person. But if you're having a conversation with them and you're just saying, well, tell me a little about yourself. And they say, well, I've got a wife, a kid. Well, tell me about how did you meet? And do you guys have a house? Oh, yeah, we have a house. And, oh, cool. And like, maybe you would ask them about, like, do you fix your house up? Like, how's your house look? Like, there's just keys. People will give you keys about what they, what pride that they take in their life,
what they value,
what they value. And you can see it in, I'll say that I like employees that have, let's say like a guy who's married with kids has a very, very different motivation than like a single guy.
I think what you're saying is a person that has stability, because the implication is married with kids is stability, which doesn't mean the other person's not, but they have an invested interest in showing up.
That's right. Yeah. No, there's plenty of guys.
I thought you were going to say a veteran. I thought you were going to say a veteran or a former athlete.
Not former athlete necessary, but in my last company, I hired a lot of veterans because they're hardworking. I hired a lot of the Mexican guys because their work ethic is, on another level. So, I don't know. And everybody is on.
So
I just, it's like I just try to spend enough time. I think I've been blessed with a very good judge of character, and I can generally tell. And if it doesn't work out within the first couple of weeks, I immediately cut that short. As soon as I know,
you fire quick. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
All right. So what are, and I'm sure you talk about this in the book, what are the strategies? What are the tools? What are the secrets for avoiding the hustle trap? What do you share? What's the wisdom?
So, one of it is creating distance. It's really important for your business. So,
how so? Distance meaning
let's just say you don't go to work on Fridays, or you cut your day short at 2 p.m. every day, and you hold steadfast. If your people are calling you, with questions all the time, or saying like, "Hey, I've got this fire to put out," don't call them back for 2 or 3 hours. See if they figure it out themselves. If you do, like I would tell my guys, I would say, "Hey, listen, like I'm okay with helping you guys through problems, but the first thing I want to hear when you call me is the 3 things that you've already tried to fix whatever problem you have." So they call me and they'd be like, "I tried X, Y, Z, and none of them worked." Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Or if they call and say, "Well, I haven't tried anything yet," be like, "What did I tell you? Like, go back, try some stuff, And so it's empowering. And I mean, it was literally go from like, I get 10 calls a day until I had called the rule of 3. And then suddenly it went down to like a call every other day from someone who was really stuck.
It's so interesting you say that, because when I do my coaching and consulting, I tell the leaders, I said, don't let somebody else make their problem yours. Every time someone comes to you with the problem, you say to them, "And what have you tried?"
Yep.
Come up with 3. One can be outrageous. One can be okay. And then you brainstorm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically, it's like parenting. I do the same thing with my kids.
Yeah.
So, so creating space, creating, feedback loops in my business has been really important. So meaning that there's feedback loops that create alignment between my employees and my customers and myself and and usually, if my customer is happy and it makes my employee happy, then it makes me happy. And so anything that can reinforce that is really important in my business. I have a certain data sort of triggers that I set up. So I have an email that I created that comes every morning that has a bunch of data that I can look over to see where things like conversion rates or ad spend or, star rating for the week. So I want to know exactly what the health of my business is. And as long as all those numbers are staying in order, then I'm good. If something is triggered, like all of a sudden one day my conversion rate shoots down like up to 10%. I go, "Oh, hey, that's really good. What happened?" And then we find out what it was and we recreate that. Or if it drops from 5% to 1%, what happened? Go to my SEO guy or whatever, and he'll say, "Well, there was an article that came out about your company, but it was non-related traffic and that drops it." Okay, cool. So, but I need to know these things immediately. And so this email every morning is good for me. And then you have to read the book, but I go through sort of each one, which is it's really about the technology that you're using, doing technology audits to see what's latest and greatest. Where can you cut as well? Ways to use to structure improvement around your company where your employees are a vital part of the improvement. And so creating dashboards that they have access to where they're making recommendations and also using your customers to grow your business while also not letting your customers dictate where your business is going. Anecdotally. So on the mass, when you have a lot of people asking for the same thing, it's worth looking at. If it's a single person or a couple people, probably not. You need to drag them into your systems. So anyhow, a lot. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the book.
So basically what you're saying is, so if people are listening, it's not that you're not engaged with your business, right? You have that daily email. You are every day, but you're working on your business. You're not working in your business.
I don't have to go to work on any given day. So yeah. I don't have a job. So my day is wake up, read some books, watch some YouTube videos, go on a walk. I'll go to the office maybe at 8. I'll do some calls like this, and I wrap up my day by noon. And so in between that, I'll maybe look at some different technology. I'll read on lately. I've been trying to study some of the AI stuff. This is how I spend a lot of time in crypto space. I'm just curious, and so it's kind of 4 hours of learning, and a lot of that learning is applied to my business. Some of it is not. Some of it is just my own curiosities. But I'm very aware of the health of my business, and that's what's most important.
Okay, so for all the listeners, who doesn't want that lifestyle that Ryan just described? So I absolutely encourage people when his book comes out, June, July, The Hustle Trap, to get it. So Ryan, I have one more question for you. What is the last book you reread and why?
Atomic Habits. I just reread it again. Yeah. And the reason why, because I started a book club. I work with formerly incarcerated men and women. And so I do stuff both at the halfway houses and in prison. And and so I thought, well, I have all these amazing books that have made a huge impact on my life. And so I started this book club. And so the first book that we just finished at our meeting last night was Atomic Habits. And so it's fun just going back to some of these old books. So the next one we're starting today is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Another one, because these are all class, like really just amazing books that can build a foundation. And so for these guys just getting out of prison, like the foundation is very important. And then we can start, once you know how to create habits, then we can decide which habits are good to create. And so sort of a step program.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. So I lied. I do have one more question for you. What is the one song that you can't live without? Because you answered the other one too easily.
Yeah. The one song I can't live without. Oh man, that's a tough one. I can't say one of them. I don't know.
What's your wedding song?
I couldn't even tell you. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this podcast. No. So me and my son.
What about when you were in the army? What about when you were in the army? Didn't you guys pass the time listening to music?
I used to listen to a little bit more country back then. Right now my son's really into classic rock, and so we've been going to a lot of concerts lately. And so we went to a Styx concert, and we've been listening to a lot of Styx lately. And so what is The Fly? Time to Fly. I love that song. And so we listen to that a lot together in the car. So anything that I listen to with my son, but I can't say, I'm just not a huge music person. So it's a tough question. Yeah.
Well, email me when you think of the answer. All right. So where would you like people to go to learn more about you and to get more of your wisdom?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to ryancrownholm.com. And on there, I try to keep some of my articles and things that I post. And you can see some other places that I've made appearances. And then the book, of course, which will be coming out in June, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan. It's really been such a pleasure to have you. I could talk to you forever. The wisdom just doesn't stop. It's amazing, all the different things that you've accomplished. And thank you for your service to this great country.
Oh, thank you.